Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Awaken to Your Soul Path. I am your host, Barbara, and today I am joined by the wonderful Tasha Renee. And today we are going to talk about women's sacred rage. And I've been really looking forward to this topic because the words are new. So my mind doesn't actively know what they mean, but my heart feels that they're very familiar.
Mm,
So I've been dying to talk to you about this,
I
Tasha.
love that. I love that description. I'm really happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yes, you're very welcome. We clicked and we hit it off when we met, and then this topic, like I said, I feel drawn to it. So
Yeah.
I can imagine other people might also have the same feeling drawn to it. So what could you tell us about women's sacred rage, or what would be the best place to start and talk about this topic?
Yeah. So a lot of people, I'll go into just describing exactly what it is because that is the main thing that happens, or people are just like, they're like intrigued. They're like, oh, wow, that sounds, how can rage be sacred? How can my anger, this thing, especially with women, we've been taught, to not show our anger, that would, be the good girl. It's not ladylike. We should be more seen, than we are heard. It's like this really disgusting, honestly, thing that we've been taught that we are just
Mm.
bad and wrong for having this. So, what makes your rage sacred is really the short version of explaining that would be that it's working for you instead of against you. So when your anger is out of balance, and we all know that anger is a secondary emotion, so it's always harboring, protecting. It's always in protection mode. It's just
Mhm.
that protection is somewhat out of balance if the pain underneath it hasn't been healed, dealt with, expressed, acknowledged, and all the things. You have to be able to acknowledge your anger in order to get to those things. A lot of people will find sometimes that their anger actually is the thing that's easier to tap into than it is the pain, sadness that is underneath it. They're always tied together. And
Mm.
other people will say, I go to get angry and then I cry. So I don't actually feel my anger. I just get angry tears, and it makes me so mad that I can't just feel my anger. I just go into this, like, what they feel to be a weakness place, right? Like I just start
Mhm.
crying and I can't really tap into my anger. And so then they kind of stop their process because of that. What they don't realize is if they would let their tears come out, their anger would follow very quickly. If you would let your anger out, the sadness, the grief, the pain underneath would also come out very quickly as well. So what we do is we do an alchemization process of that anger into sacred rage. And that process, which we can go into later, but as a whole, what you're doing when you get into a safe container where you're able to do what I've now coined as WAPI, which is WAPI, which is you're being witnessed in it, you're being acknowledged, you're getting to purge it, and you have to integrate it. When you have all four of those things happening, there's an alchemization process, meaning that once you go through that, there's the trauma layers that you had where that was coming from have been removed. The trauma is not removed, your anger is not, as a whole, to get angry is not removed, but those trauma layers are removed. So now when you have those things come up that would have made you angry before, you're able to, your trauma response that you would normally have basically to those things, because that's really what happens, right? We have a fawning, fight, flight, or there's a freeze. And if your trauma response, you still feel and get into that trauma response, to be honest, but now there's this ability to be able to think
Mm.
and act instead of just freezing or fawning, disappearing, right? Or doing the fight flight. There's this ability to hold the emotions and be able to think clearly and make an action.
Mhm.
And that's really what you want, because how many times, just like an easy thing to talk about, how many times you get on stage and you freeze and you can't do anything, or you get into something where you're in a situation with a man, let's say, that triggers you, activates you, and you freeze, you can't do anything about it.
Mhm.
um Now you're able to actually do something about it. So that's where, and then it becomes further into being able to set boundaries and use your sacred no. And your intuition gets stronger, so you're able to stand up for yourself and others, but you're also able to know when you should or shouldn't be doing something, And you have the courage and bravery to say, I don't want to do that, despite somebody judging you or shaming you for it, or possibly abandoning you or rejecting you for it. So that's where it becomes sacred. It becomes this thing that's like, I'm going to speak up and do whatever it is I need to do for myself, despite what anybody would fucking think of me or how they would make me feel. And I'm also able to make it through emotions now that I couldn't before.
Very empowering. And I recognize what you're saying. I've had both ways. When I was very angry as a child, I couldn't vent that because my dad was abusive. And whenever I spoke up or went against him, that had serious consequences that I would do almost anything to avoid. So when I became angry and I swallowed it in, then I would start crying because I was frustrated. I was angry. I couldn't vent it. So it became tears. But I also know the other side where something hurts me and I don't want to cry in that moment. I don't want to be weak or show weakness. And then I turn the tears into anger. Because anger at least gives you a semblance of control, where crying feels powerless and anger feels like you're having power indeed.
Yes, you have, your power's not going to be taken from you. It's like, fuck you, will you take this from me? Right. And it's also, there's a part, I mean, because my stuff comes from being in too much anger. That's where my story comes from. Right. So for me, it was also a sense of almost like a power trip. Like, it was like, I got off on that feeling of being able to be like, you just hurt my feelings. And now, because I normally am in people pleasing mode, now this fire gets ignited and I get to not give a fuck about trying to please you. And I could just be like, I hate you. I hate you. I fucking hate you. I wish you die. Like, it was just horrific things that would come out of my mouth, because really, ultimately, that out of balance anger is trying again to say, I'm hurt. You hurt my feelings. And when we know that the person's not going to listen to that, we naturally fucking get angry about it. Like, for sure. And it's, again, really, I really believe that rejection and abandonment is at the core of everything we do, the fear of that.
Yes.
And so, yeah, so there is this, for those of us that get angry easily, this feeling of, oh, it's like a freedom. It's like, I don't have to care about you abandoning or rejecting me because I'm so mad. And because of that, I'm just going to hold on to that fire and I'm going to make more of it. And I'm just going to burn your face off with it like I'm a dragon. So yeah, there's this. And then you finally do, when it does get more balanced, you start to realize what's really beautiful. Then you feel guilty, right? You usually feel guilty after that type of expression because it's unbridled, it's unleashed, right? What's really cool is righteous anger, which is that sacred rage. So let's say somebody's pushing your boundaries and you, from a more controlled space, gets to say, I don't like that. Please don't do that to me. I don't appreciate that. And they keep pushing your boundaries and they keep doing shit. Guess what you get to fucking do? You get to be a bitch, and rightfully so. You get to be like, I told you 3 times to get the fuck back, and you're not doing it. So fuck you, get the fuck out of my life, or disappear until you can do those things. And it's this feeling of like, oh, there's a real power in that, of this, like, because there's no guilt or shame attached to it. You're like, I fucking warned you. I warned you. And I will say that to people too. Sometimes I'll be like, I'm really angry right now, and there's some things I really want to say to you. So I'm not going to say any of those things unless you're open to hearing them. That's another way that I get to unleash sometimes. It's like, you fucking asked for it, so let's go. So yeah.
Yeah, I recognize what you're saying, and I'm very happy that we're talking about this, because this is something that a lot of the people that I am fortunate enough to help, to guide, are struggling with. And I struggled with it myself, because I already shared a bit about my past and my childhood and an abusive father. So I learned to keep everything in. I learned to not express anything, but that led to a huge store up of anger. And I could feel the anger deep inside of me. And it scared me shitless, because I was afraid that if I would let it out, I would lose control and it could hurt people without me being able to control it. And that's something I desperately didn't want. So I kept fighting to keep it in. And that's not possible. Sooner or later, there comes a moment where it needs to be released. And I was fortunate enough to find a very safe space, like the spaces I am offering to people, where you can unleash that anger and where I could let it out without it hurting people, to blur or to purge myself, to let the anger come out. And I remember that I went from doormat to hellfire.
Yeah, I just got chills. Woo!
Where all of a sudden I didn't take anybody's shit. And it was like, you want to fight, right?
Wow.
And it was completely opposite. And a lot of my clients tell me this. I said, I'm ripping everybody's head off. And I said, but that's okay, because in the beginning you did absolutely nothing. And now you don't take anything. And you need those extremes to eventually end up here in the middle.
Got to swing. The pendulum has to swing always.
Yes.
Yep.
And where you can say, now I can say, are you done speaking? Do you want me to hit you in the face right now? Or should I wait 5 minutes? I don't know.
You ready to put on your gear? Because you're going to need some. Yeah.
Where I am aware of what they're saying and how it would have angered the old me. And I'm now in a place where I can say, are you listening to what you're saying? And are you aware that this is just very disrespectful and very hurting? And that it's just not pleasant to listen to these things that come out of your mouth. Are you aware? Because most people, they speak without thinking. And they are not aware of how it comes across, or how other people can interpret it differently, or how they can actually hurt people. I know the brother of my ex-boyfriend always said, oh, but I'm telling the truth. Like that justified being able to say everything, right?
That brutal honesty, that hurtful honesty, which is again coming from anger. Yep. Yes. From a space of unleashed, not balanced. Yeah. Yep.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah, it's really interesting when you pointed on the fact that when you're like, I kept repressing it and thinking it would just, kind of go away, so to speak. I just didn't want to feel it. I learned recently, I think I've known this, but I've also learned recently that anger, rage, specifically rage, is actually one of the 7 primary emotions.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
It makes you human. You won't be human without that. It's like trying to turn off joy and happiness. It's literally the same fucking shit.
Yes.
They're not, it's not bad. It's only out of control when it's out of balance. And so, yes, having that space, that safe space to be able to, where it's wanted, where you're being encouraged to get bigger, to get uglier, to say more. I mean, we've had people literally straight faces say, if I could get away with it, I would fucking murder not 1, not 2, but 3 people today. Like, and straight faced. And all we do is go, yes. And they're all like, wait, what? It's like, yeah, the thing that you're afraid to do is the thing that we get off on. Like, we love that shit, because one of the mottos of what we do is, it's coming up to come out. It's not coming up so you'll hurt somebody. It's not coming up so it'll control you. It's not coming up to cause you more problems. It's coming up to leave you in this environment. And it does. So that is such a relief to, and to be, our private sessions are great. Me, Jacqueline, and another person who was my business partner and best friend. But the group sessions are even more powerful, right? Because you're surrounded by, 9 other women in the group who are feeling the same way you are. You realize you're not crazy. Okay. And yeah, you're right on the whole, like when the pendulum swinging, right? 9 times out of 10, if the person really cares about you and you go off on somebody and then you explain, wow, I'm really sorry, I'm really raw right now, I went through some things, I'm trying to find my footing on where my anger is allowed to come out, they're going to hold space for you with that if you come to them with an apology around that kind of stuff, right?
If they are worthwhile, definitely. And if they don't,
not, bye-bye. And that's what that sacred rage is all about too. It's going to burn down all the shit that's not serving you. And that includes people. And I think it's another reason too, Barbara, people get afraid to step into their anger and rage, because they know they're going to have a backbone now. They know that the energy's shifted, and there's certain people in their lives that are expecting them to keep playing that role to make them feel a certain way. And now you're not in that role. It's turned upside down, and it turns everybody else upside down. And if they're not ready to shift and change with you, they are going to leave. That could be your husband or your wife. That could be your
what I
Yeah.
see most actually, that people are afraid of ending up alone. They're afraid of
Rejection and
shooing
abandonment.
everybody out of their life, rejection, abandonment, being ignored, being an outcast, being undesired. Because a lot of people that come to me have already felt that way for most of their life and have been trying really hard to fit in with everybody else, to be like everybody else, to be loved, to be wanted, to be accepted. And that's part of why they are struggling with their rage, because they are trying to put their square self into a round hole and they're hammering away at it and it just won't budge because it's not who they are, but it doesn't stop them from trying really hard. And they are afraid that if they admit that they are square and round, and if they admit to people, well, what you're saying is just really hurting me, or I don't like the way you're treating me because it makes me feel like I am lesser than. And I don't want to feel lesser than because I am not lesser than. That when they step up and stand up for themselves, that they will lose everybody because nobody will accept them if they are who they really are.
If they are, and that's what I'm talking about, is that space of, so I just want to acknowledge you, acknowledge my damn self, acknowledge every woman that's had the courage to step into that, knowing that that fire is going to burn down all the things that aren't meant for them, of
Yes.
getting to a space where they're so, ill in some aspects, really sick in some aspects, right?
Mm-hmm.
Some of them are actually physically ill, that they're still able to say, that may be scary for me, but what's scarier is that this shit keeps going and keeps getting worse and isn't going away, and it's actually making me ill, and I don't want to be fucking ill anymore. I want to be healthy, and my soul's telling me to do this. It's telling me, I feel that fear, but my soul is saying this, and so I'm gonna
sick
listen.
and tired of always being sick and tired.
Yes.
Sick and tired of always having to go through the same type of shit in the same type of situations. Yes, it might be other people. Yes, it might be other places, but the general gist of it is always the same. And I'm just so done.
Yeah, it's like everybody and everything is the same. The scenery is just different. It's just a different package with the same insides because you're still the same. Exactly. That's really what we have to remember, and people know this by now, but we have to remember that nothing changes until we change. Nothing shifts, nothing gets better until we get better. Nothing, God, Jesus, whoever you believe in, doesn't go first. You do. You have to go first. It's called free will, and you have to use your free will to get better. You do. And it's like, I've been doing this for over 2.5 years. And for some people, it doesn't matter how many times I say, there's not one woman that's ever come in. I'm sure the same for you. Not one woman that's ever come in and done our work that has ever been more angry, more out of control, hurt people, or any of the things they were terrified of. It's always, I'm happier, I'm freer, I'm more in control, I have more money, I have more opportunities. Like there's a payoff you get of having the courage and bravery to step into your fire, step back into your pain and trauma, knowing that it's going to be for a healing reason. Because that's what I want to remind people all the time is like, when this trauma happened to you, it was forced on you. You didn't have a choice or a voice when it happened. It was something that you didn't get to decide about. When you stand up and say, I'm going to step into this on purpose, I'm choosing to step into it, guess what happens? There's a power shift. There's a power shift of dynamics is done there. And now you are in control of your emotions because you chose to step into them, and you chose to say, I see you. I want to see what you're all about. I'm done ignoring you. I know you're just another part of me that's trying to fucking love me and trying to get me along in this world easier. So let's meet. Let's have conversation. Let's scream our faces off together. Let's heal.
And the way I let go of my rage was also in a group setting. So that's something that I'm doing. And I can imagine that there are also men watching our episode. So it's not just women's sacral rage, but it's also male sacral rage, of course. I also have a lot of men. I have actually more men than women.
Interesting.
Yes.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Well, and we're definitely open to helping men, by the way. Just, it hasn't happened yet, but we do private sessions for men. I would love to offer offer an online group program, which is all of our stuff's been online so far. We do have an upcoming in-person retreat that's happening for women, but I would love to, if there are men, you know, watching, of course, and you're interested in what I'm talking about, then please come to me, because we definitely would love to help out in that way as well.
Exactly, because there are many men also that are struggling with a lot of, or maybe all of the things that we've mentioned here in our talk today. So if you feel at any way resonating with our messages, right, either reach out to me or reach out to Tasha. I'll make sure that all our links to find us will be below this show episode so that you can easily find us, because it's not just females, it's also definitely males. And it's time. Our planet is changing, our energy is changing, and we are moving into the direction where it's time that we unburden ourselves, that we let go of these shackles, these things that are holding our back, and step into our power. And a big part of this is what we've been talking about here today's episode, letting go of your internal rage and stepping into who you are without apology, without shame, and just come from a place of love and kindness, but with firm boundaries, and not be afraid to set them, to speak up.
Yeah, and a lot of people can't do that until they've released that anger and rage first. You know, they need to really be in a space where they're allowed to let all those initial layers again to fucking burn off, because a lot of them don't fucking want to be. You know, it's like, well, fuck you, I don't want to do any of that shit. Like, the world owes me some shit, and you know, in a way, it fucking does. And I'm always having to be the person that has to think bigger and be the bigger person and do all the things, right? So yeah. And until that's honored, that space of fuck you is honored, there really isn't a way for people to just, for long term anyways, be able to think positive over it, or like, you know, be able to be like, oh, I'm just gonna like stand up and do my boundaries. You know, it's like impossible. It's like they just can't do it. And with men, it's interesting because there's this opposite side, right? So women are taught they can't be angry. It's, you know, not ladylike. Men are taught they can't be weak, and getting help
They cannot
sometimes
cry.
being weak, right? Being weak. And then what happens is you have another layer of anger on top of that, on top of the already, they get to express anger. They're just, it's knowledgeable that men are going to be more aggressive, so they are already able to be angry, but then they're not allowed to be soft. So there's another layer of fucking anger underneath there, and it's really just, yeah, it's just not okay. It's not. And they need to have that space as well, for sure.
Exactly. Yes. And especially if you are a more sensitive man, an empathic man, a highly sensitive man, then you don't match with the stereotype image of the macho man, the alpha male that needs to talk about sports, booze, boobs, and cars. That's not who you are. And a lot of these men often have a lot more women friends, because with women, they can show their more sensitive side. With women, they can talk about more feminine topics, or like feelings, which are often seen as a feminine topic. And I was talking with one of my clients about it the other day, and we were talking about how when a woman where women or a woman breaks down on the work floor and starts crying, then that's sort of accepted. Usually they think, oh, it's probably that time of the month, also not something that we're really happy about, but at least, you know, it's sort of accepted. But when a man breaks down and starts crying, it's like, oh my God, what are you doing? Please stop. This is scary. Type of reaction.
I've seen a lot of shows lately. Oh God, I can't remember the name of the freaking show where the guy's the soccer coach. Damn it. Anyways, there's a lot of shows now I'm seeing where, and even reality shows, where men are crying, holding each other, being there for each other. And it makes me bawl my face off every time I see it, because I'm like, oh my God, I fucking love this so much. That they're like mainstreaming men being more emotional. Like, it's just so beautiful to me. So it is shifting, it is changing in some aspects, but I think we're always going to have, you know, the people that think it's not okay for women to be angry, they're bitches, they're being too sensitive. We're always going to have the people who are not okay with men being soft. You're a beta male. Why are you a little bitch? Don't be a pussy. You know, all the things that they get, right? We're always going to have it. That's why it's really important to do your own sacred rage work.
Definitely.
Because when that shit happens, you can be like, fuck you. You're not tied to, you can see through them. You're like, I see why you're doing that, because you're not tapped into your anger and your softer side. That's why you're doing that. And I have no effect on that anymore. And then
Honestly,
that version of you, of that person that stands up and says, fuck you. Then another person, another man, especially, right? This is a man doing this, goes, oh, well, maybe I can be like, fuck you too then. Like, maybe I can do that. And it becomes a ripple effect. Just like hatred has a ripple effect, so does fucking happiness, love, and healing. It does too.
I honestly don't believe that there's a space in the future left for this narrow-minded things that you were talking about. I honestly think that we are evolving and moving into a direction where there is more like the yin and yang symbol. There's yang and yin and yang. So that means that we women can tap a bit more into our male energy, and our men can tap a bit more into our female energy, so that we are more equals, instead of the man being all this and the women being a servant. And it's I think that that's the way to move forward. I think that that's where we are heading towards.
Yeah, so, I agree with you. I agree with you. I don't think it's going to be for many years that we get in that even space, because what's going to happen, it's not normally the men that are attacking the women. Well, I mean, they do, don't get me wrong, but a lot of times it's men attacking men for being that way, and it's because they haven't healed their own shit. So that's what I mean. Well, there's always going to probably be some percentage of somebody that's like, that's not right, that's not okay, because they haven't, it's a mirror effect. But yes, I totally agree with you. I feel like it's already shifting. Like I was saying, I feel like they're mainstreaming men doing these things. They're mainstreaming women getting pissed off and screaming. I've seen so many shows about that. So it definitely is shifting. It definitely has shifted. And there's definitely more permission and space. I mean, 2.5 years ago, when we brought up the word sacred rage, you think we're confused now. Think about it, 2.5 years ago, people were like, what the fuck?
What are you talking about?
We didn't call it sacred rage. We called it embrace your anger. Embracing your anger is what we call it. Everybody's like, why the fuck would I embrace my anger? That's the thing I'm trying to push away. So we're still 2.5 years later, the business is still not where it's supposed to be yet, because we're still in that space of people going, what? I'm still trying to find a way to make it softer.
Yes.
I'm still trying to make a way to make people be like, oh, I'm safe doing that. Like I have so many testimonials of people saying this is the safest, most beautiful, amazing space I've ever been in my life. And it doesn't matter. It does not matter if I have 1,000 fucking testimonials saying that. People are still like, I can't do it. I'm freaked out.
But that's your own beliefs, right? I call it the bullshit rules of life, the bullshit rules of life, where we have been taught the way we are supposed to act, the way we are supposed to respond, the way things are supposed to be, and that's been handed down from generation to generation to generation. So it's messing with your mind. It's in your DNA, literally, as well as what you've been indoctrinated with. So it takes a lot to break out of it. But honestly, if we want to move forward in our society, we need to accept the fact that our emotions are the signs that tell us if we are still following the right road and how much resistance we are giving. All the emotions matter, and the positive emotions, people think, well, I can never cry again, or I can never be angry again, because if I do that, then I'm fucking with the law of attraction, and then I'm attracting more things to cry about. So I'm pushing everything away, and I'm only focusing on everything that's positive, because I want more of that, so the rest cannot be there.
Yes.
That's a thing that I also often see, and it's such a shame, because it's only a fraction of what it really is. And following the law of attraction, listening to Abraham Hicks or all the other teachers out there, it's not about not having any negative emotions ever again. It's about recognizing that when you have a negative emotion, that you've steered off the path, that you are offering resistance in your boat, that you're no longer just flowing down the stream. And then it needs to prompt you to look into your mind, in your thoughts. What have I been thinking about? What has been going through my brain? What is it that is not in line with who I really am and where I really want to be, that's offering this resistance, that's triggering this emotion? So they are like guides that tell us if we are on the right track or not. It's not about avoiding everything negative or angry, sad, all of these emotions. It's about learning what they mean and
Yeah,
acting on them.
it's about being self-aware. It's really it's
Yes.
a compass. It's supposed to like point you in a direction. It's supposed to stop you and make you go, huh, why is that happening? Do I need to stick up for myself in this moment? Do I need to pay attention? Maybe this person's right what they're fucking saying. What do I need to do with this feeling I'm having? It's something to look at, not something to make your truth or
Mm,
to act upon entirely. And what you were talking about, by the way, is called toxic positivity. So
mm,
you're using you're using positivity to bypass your anger, right? Spiritual bypassing is another one. So spiritual bypassing is where you say, like, for instance, let's say somebody we're talking to somebody and I say, well, how did your mother's relationship with you? Oh, well, my mom did this to me, but I know that we come here and from the other side, and we're supposed to, like, this is what makes me stronger, and I know that my mom has her own stuff as a whole, and I know that they have their own journey. And you see how they're bypassing it? They're just bypassing.
mm.
They're using these spiritual reasons to bypass your anger again. And it's like, we have to redirect and be like, okay, and you get to love your mom and say all the things and still be fucking pissed off at her.
Yes.
You get to still be mad at you. There's a big thing with people. Like they have this thing about, like, well, my mom was doing the best they could and she was hurt too and got beat as a child and raped and all these things. And so, I couldn't really expect her to really know how to raise me. No. Are you still pissed? It doesn't mean you love them any less. If anything, it means you love them more, because once you do that, your relationship actually gets stronger. So
Yes.
yes, it's
I agree with
totally,
you. For me, it's the difference between my adult self and my child self that's still
yeah.
within my adult self now, with all the knowledge that I've acquired and everything that I've seen and gone through myself. I can see my mom did the best she could with the means that she had at the moment, the knowledge she had at the moment, and her own background and her limiting beliefs. I honestly, truly believe my mom did her best with everything that she had. But was it enough? No. Did I seriously get hurt? Yes. And is my inner child hurting and angry and upset and very lonely because of that? Damn straight. And
Yeah.
that is a part that can be acknowledged as well. And although my adult self has a lot of understanding and a lot of compassion, that doesn't mean that the child emotions that are still there, or that I've been working on and that are slowly diminishing, but that they didn't have a space, that they couldn't be there, because they should be there, because it happened and you're feeling it, and you should never repress anything, because sooner or later that will lead to probably physical illness.
Oh, not probably. The number one emotional cause of stomach cancer is fucking anger.
See?
And your anger is stored in your liver. Also, gallbladder issues are also anger. Jaw issues,
Mm,
anger. Throat, which is your throat chakra, your ability to speak up,
yes.
fucking anger. So, like, it's huge, it's massive. Is it the cause of anger? No, but it's the number one emotional cause for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And chronic pain, I can't tell you how many people have screamed their face off, and no joke, immediately after screaming, their chronic pain's gone and never fucking comes back. I mean, never. Like, bad where you're limping, bad where you've had a year of TMJ every night, so bad that you have to have a night guard and medication every night, and the minute you're done, it's gone forever, and your doctor's like, what'd you do? And she
Mm-hmm.
was like, I don't know, I guess I was pissed. I guess I
Yeah,
was
and I completely understand. When we're talking about the stomach meridian is here
oh,
on your
no,
jaw.
where does your digestion start? Where does it first start? Right here. When you
Yes.
chew. Yep,
Exactly.
the
And the
right lower.
gallbladder goes up here through the neck and also has a deep connection with the throat, but also
What?
zigzags over your head. So all the migraines and cluster headaches and stuff like that are also deeply connected
I
to
did
it.
not know that your gallbladder was tied to your fucking throat, tied to your throat chakra. I've got chills from that too. That makes so much sense.
And the
So yes,
liver, which is the yin partner of the gallbladder, the liver is all about anger.
yeah, it is. Yeah, all your anger stored in your liver. And guess what your liver does? It's your filtration system. So when
Yes.
that shit's filled of anger, you're filtering all of your organs, your blood, everything through anger. It's literally leaking out and becoming something that's just like
It's
bad,
eating you
like
up
so
from
bad.
the inside out, literally.
Yeah.
Yes.
Your
Yes.
issues are in your tissues. Ever heard of that saying? Because it's the fucking truth. So
Yes.
yeah, and I'll tell you, there's women who, when they're done screaming, we've just recently said we have to start taking before and after pictures because their faces are completely different.
Yes.
And we had a woman whose face kept changing for a week. Her face was completely different after a week of working with us. It was insane.
Mm-hmm.
So it does have a physical, you know, thing that is done with that does have a physical effect on you for sure, that whether
Yeah.
you want to try to ignore it, there's no such thing. It's things don't disappear, it's energy. So energy becomes, something else. It moves on into transforming into something else. So either it keeps transforming in a way to find a release, which is through physical illness, usually, if you're not listening to it, or it's going to disperse and it's going to go off and be used for good somewhere into the earth and into the light.
Exactly.
It's one or the other.
So would it then be a good sort of summary to say that sacred rage is about acknowledging your anger and releasing it in a healthy way?
Oh yeah, most definitely. I think it's more about alchemizing it, but you definitely are releasing for sure the
Transforming it?
toxicity of
Yeah.
anger, the toxic things that are just leaking into your whole system gets released, because again, it comes up and it comes out.
Mhm.
Yes, for sure.
And
Yes,
I
yes,
love
yes.
that you're talking about the screaming, because one of my best friends, the ones that I actually always did this show with, she unexpectedly died last month, and she asked me to
Oh,
continue with our show, but it was a huge shock. It was very unexpected, and I remember screaming my head off in the woods because I had to release the anger and the emotions I was feeling around the news of her passing.
yeah, it's and the women who scream in our program and in our private sessions, it's not the same as like screaming in your kitchen or your car because you've had it up to here, or even that type of scream. Honestly,
Mm.
women on an average scream 20 to 30 minutes straight, and we
Mhm.
have seen women go for up to 2 hours on and off, screaming, crying, puking. I mean, all the things. So it's I love that you're doing that. I think it's so important to allow ourselves. I had made a post the other day that said screaming on a regular basis is self-care.
Yes,
It's
most
straight the fuck up
definitely.
is. And people that I'm close to who have taken our programs are like 2 years later, they're like, oh yeah, I'm really pissed about my mom. I got to scream about that today. I'm going to go scream about that today. I
Yes.
fucking totally pick up my scream jar and scream into that's the scream jar that we had at one point.
Yeah.
But so they're still doing it.
Yes.
They're still like, oh, I'm pissed about that, and I'm going to fucking scream about it. So again, it's not that it doesn't just go away, that you're not going to want to scream and get pissed off. It's that
You
you
have the
allow it
right to
to.
be pissed, especially in
Yeah.
things that warrant your anger, because let's face it, there are a lot of things happening in today's world that justify being angry. And
Yes.
that can
Yes.
trigger anger, and that's perfectly fine, but you need to release it or transform it in a healthy way, getting
You
it
need to
out of
allow it
your
to move
system.
through you. Like you're saying, it's about instead of going, this is scary, I'm gonna stuff it down, I'm gonna eat, I'm gonna go have sex, I'm gonna fucking do some drugs, I'm gonna fucking get pissed off at somebody else. Instead, you sit with it and you allow it to come up and bubble up and come out of you and move through you. So it leaves, it goes away,
Exactly.
it stops doing the thing that it's been causing problems with.
Yes, exactly. It's not about running away from it. It's not about avoiding it or never experiencing it again. It's about meeting it head on
Yeah,
in a healthy
exactly.
way.
Exactly. It's about having a relationship. It's just
Yes.
like you have a relationship with joy and happiness. It's a relationship, and grief and sadness. Like, it's a relationship that you have, right? It's not
Yes.
something you're running from anymore, because you realize it's literally something that's just leading you to more love. And when
Hmm.
you can see that that's really what it's doing, it's trying to lead you to more happiness. It's trying to lead you to more peace.
Exactly.
It just feels a little scary in the moment, and really honestly freeing and awesome and amazing too. There's like that,
Yes.
just that liberation of like, finally I can just be pissed and I can be accepted for that.
Afterwards, I was told my face was so much softer, and I finally felt like this huge weight was lifted off of me, and that I could breathe again, and there was still anger in there because you can't get everything out, not the amount I had, but at
Right.
least the pressure was off. And then I had faced it in a way that it had not hurt anybody else, so I didn't have to be scared for it anymore. And I learned how to let it out myself in a good and healthy way in dealing with it, instead of having it grow back to that size again, just allowing my body to release more and more and more of it without adding new to it. It's a two-way street. It's both knowing how to release it, and also knowing how to not add to
Yeah,
your.
well, I think what you experienced also, which is what our clients experience, is this thing of like, oh, wow, the thing I was that level I was so terrified of. And when you're able to let that level of terrifying feelings out, you realize that nothing else you're ever going to be angry about is ever going to be as fucking scary as that moment when you were terrified.
No.
So when you realize the monster is really not a monster, it's just another part of you, you
Yes.
now can let it come up and be super angry and know that it's not going to destroy you. Guess what that does again? That makes the power shift has changed. You realize that there's nothing that you're ever going to feel is going to overtake you like that again, because you went and faced and made friends with and saw the joy and the love and the happiness of the monster that you thought would take you over and everybody else out.
And it released the brakes. After that, I wasn't afraid to tell people that
Fuck
they had
off.
hurt me with the things that they, yeah. But in the
Yeah,
beginning, I was still polite. The fuck
sure.
off came later, and there was a transition. But at least the break was off. So in the beginning, I was still polite in saying, "Oh, are you aware that what you said hurt me?" And later it was, "Shall I hit you in the face right now, or should I wait till 2
Yeah.
seconds?"
And the thing is, the tribe that you end up having from this, or even the ones you still have, they appreciate that. They appreciate
Yes.
the fact that you can say, because it gives them permission. All of a sudden now they have permission to be like, oh, well, maybe I can say some things maybe I wanted to say, and you can hold space for that. Yes, your feelings still may be hurt by something that somebody says to you, but you're able to hold the emotions of that and say, wow, that hurt my feelings, I need some time to process that, or can we talk deeper? There's just more communication because this is unblocked, right? This is where a
Exactly.
lot of it comes from, is this shutdown of like, I can't speak up. If I speak up, I'm going to be rejected and abandoned. I'm going to be abused. Fucking somebody's situation, you might have been killed, like literally. So when this is opened and there's now space to say, this hurt me, I don't like that, get away from me, we need to talk, like it just makes it easier, more peaceful.
But it opens up dialogue also with the other side, because if I am able to tell them, what you heard, what you just said hurt me because it triggers this and this and this within me, and they said, oh, I wasn't, I didn't mean it that way. I didn't even think about that it could come across like this. And I'm so very sorry that what I said hurt you, although I didn't mean it to hurt
Yeah,
you. And then you're like, oh, you didn't mean it. Oh, and then you can see it from their side. And all of a sudden, there's this communication, this connection where you both got to express how things were for you or what your intentions were. And then you have understanding for each other.
yeah,
And
yeah.
there's no issue.
Now there's again more peace, more
Yes.
happiness, more ease, more healing. Like fuck, it's amazing. But it does start with you having to say, close your eyes, like really feel into your body and say, wow, this terrifies me, but do I feel like there's something behind this telling me that I need this, that this will actually give me liberation, this will be an inner revolution for me in my life? Do I feel that too? Because if
Yes.
you feel that too, that's your truth speaking, right? Fear's a
Mhm.
liar. It is a fucking liar. Is it gonna be scary? Hell yeah, it's gonna be scary. But I promise you, it's more freeing, liberating, and fucking happiness that waits than that terrifying feeling. It's an initial thing, because you've been, that terrified feeling has been built into you from what
For a
happened.
long, long time.
Yes, being terrified is really, it's what is it? It's a defense mechanism. It's
Yes.
keeping you safe. Being terrified is keeping you safe because, again, like you're saying, they've been trying so hard to not have anybody leave them or reject them. And there's this space where you get to where you look around and you go, if somebody rejects me and leaves me because I'm taking care of myself, because I got healthy, because I spoke up a boundary in a way that was healthy and not mean, do I really want that person around anyways? Probably fucking not.
No.
And you get tired. I say it all the time. People pleasers are the most pissed off people on the planet, because they have been stuffing themselves and
they're in denial
and being happy and how can I help you, and let me just be the what's not the gatekeeper, what's it called, with the people who fuck, I can't remember, but it's the people who are like, here, let me just make everything scapegoat, let me just make everything good for you. Oh, you're angry, here,
I wanted to say concierge, but
yeah, yes. So they've been doing this for possibly their whole life,
yes.
right?
Yes.
And all of a sudden they realize that these people, it makes me angry when I say it, because I'm a recovering people pleaser, so I just love getting angry about this. But you realize these motherfuckers would never have fucking done this for you. I mean, if you would have spoke up, these bitches would have left you. They would have left you. And when that clicks, you are fucking pissed, because you're like, definitely. Oh my God, I'm sick. I'm full of anxiety. I'm depressed. I am terrified of being alone because of somebody who didn't honestly give a fuck about me when I tried everything. So at that point, there's this beautiful release of just like, whoa, like I'm not gonna stay silent 1 second longer for anybody else ever again. And it's such a fucking freeing moment. It's so beautiful to be witnessed in that.
And of course, there are various ways of expressing yourself. So if you've been listening or watching and you think, oh, I don't want to scream at people, no worries, you don't have to scream at people. And of course, there are ways of saying what you're feeling in ways that will probably end up in an argument or more anger. But there are also ways of expressing what you're feeling and what you want to be saying from a respectful way that opens up dialogue. And
yes, I would actually say, Barbara, just tell people that the people who used to be super pissed, even me, there's very rarely that I get angry at somebody, very rarely, because I come at somebody now in a space that's not my immediate fire coming out, because I'm an Aries too, by the way. Okay. So so it's easy for me to pop off.
No.
So the only time I would say I get like that is if I'm in protection mode of somebody else, honestly, or myself. Like I know I'm in danger, so I will do something different. But when somebody hurts my feelings, which is where anger comes from normally, if you hurt my feelings and I'm pissed at you, that's why you hurt my feelings, right? I come at them in a way of speaking first, in a tone that's like, we need to talk. We need to whatever. So this fiery version of me that you see that I'm expressing is just talking about moments when it's okay to be really fucking mad, right? But like when somebody does cross your boundaries, it's just the moment calls for different things, and you're able again to decide how you want instead of the emotion deciding for you. So if a man grabs your ass, usually not the place to be fucking polite. Usually it's don't you ever touch me like that again, right? But if a man brushes your shoulder and it's kind of flirty, that's probably a place to be like, hey, I don't know quite what you were expecting, what you're doing there, but it really kind of makes me uncomfortable. Like, you don't have to pop me like, motherfucker, don't touch me. Like, that's not right. So it's good to explain to people, like, again, when that is out, that anger is alchemized in sacred rage. That sacred rage also is able to have you speak up in a powerful way instead of in a way that is, again, going to cause more problems for you.
Yes, because if you outburst in anger, then you're still not in control. And the whole point of this is that you can think, okay, this happened, and then decide, how do I want to respond to this? Will I respond from a place of love, from a place of fear, from a place of anger, preferably love, I think, where you communicate. But the point is you get the choice. And sometimes anger really is warranted. Sometimes things happen and you just have to immediately make it clear, this is the line and you're not crossing it ever again. And that can be accompanied with some anger if it's warranted. So it's about being able to choose.
Yep. You get the decision. That's what I was saying. Was like before you don't have the decision. Your emotion, your trauma response is totally controlling you. You don't have an ability. I'm gonna give you a small, just tiny example of, I'm a recovering people pleaser. And I've noticed, because I've done this work, I've noticed that I've done two things recently that I'm in victim mode. But I'm like, I do this thing where I'm slipping back into like people pleasing in this way that's like involves tears and like me trying to get somebody to have compassion for me so they won't reject and abandon me.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm now able to not have shame around that. The first
Mm-hmm.
thing I would feel is like, oh fuck, man, I'm doing this. I don't have that anymore. Now I'm like, oh, it's just awareness. I'm like, oh, I wonder what that's also blocking me from. Probably from receiving money. That's probably one of
Mm-hmm.
the things, because I'm trying to get
Yes.
somebody to take care of me all the time, right? So I'm now able to say, if something like that arises, I'm going to get into my power, and I'm going to in a healthy way express my boundary by saying something to the effects of, I don't appreciate that, blah, 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 whatever it is, right? Because
Exactly.
again, the other way is like, don't leave me, don't abandon me, if I speak up from a powerful place. But because I've done this work, now I'm able to be aware of it, not have any shame around it, and actually do something different. So
Exactly.
it just gives you more power, more choice, more peace, more just ability to choose. You didn't have
Yes.
those before. Yeah,
Oh,
so
I'm really loving our talk, and it feels like we can talk about
go
this for
forever.
hours. But we are coming to the end of the
Yeah.
time for today's episode. So I can imagine the people that are watching, that are listening, if you're not a subscriber yet, then please hit the subscribe button so you'll never miss awesome talks like this again. But I can imagine that they would like to know where they can find you, or where they can reach.
Yeah, so you can go to sisterhoodofsacredfire.com. That's my website. Same name on Instagram. You can find me under Tasha Renee on Facebook. And yeah, we have an upcoming program, May 15th, group program for 6 weeks. We have private sessions, and then we have an in-person retreat. It's actually a Sacred Rage Boudoir in-person retreat on a private
Oh.
island in the middle of the forest. It's going to be fucking amazing. So yeah, so those are some ways you can get a hold of me and talk about things.
I love it. I will make sure that all the relevant links can be found underneath this episode. And if you loved this episode so much, then it would mean the world to us both if you would share it with the people that are following you on whatever platform or social media that you're catching this on. Because if it was valuable to you, chances are very high that it is valuable for somebody that you know. And by sharing this episode, you will do them the biggest pleasure that you can. Thank you for being here. Thank you for watching. Thank you, Tasha, for this awesome talk today. And
Thank
I
you.
will see all of you in the next episode.
Okay, bye.
Bye, everybody.